Hello everyone. This video will discuss deception in Islam. Okay, I have been listening to a lot of people, especially here in the UK, talking about Taqquiya. However, they use it wrong, and just for the purpose of a conversation with people and an open, genuine conversation, let understand what Taqquiya means and what other doctrines in Islam do allow you to deceive non-Muslims. In my previous video, I talked about asabiya, which is a concept from Arab tribalism, which essentially means that the tribe prevails to anything, including truth and justice. Okay? So you don't care about reality, you don't care about the truth, you don't care about justice. What you care is the survival and the benefit of your tribe. Now, the worldwide Muslim population is divided into two main denominations. Okay, you have the Sunni Muslims and you have the Shia Muslims. Sunni Muslims are the bigger group out of all the Muslims in the world. Sunni Muslims are 85 to 90% of the overall population. They mostly come from countries like Saudi Arabia, North Africa, Egypt, the Levant, Turkey, and Southeast Asia, countries like Pakistan, Indonesia, and Malaysia. On the other hand, the Shia Muslims, they represent approximately 10 to 15% of the global Muslim population. Historically, they come from Iran, Iraq, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, parts of Lebanon, and Yemen. Sunni Islam developed upon Arab tribalism, and it makes perfect sense if you look at the countries in which it was developed. Whereas Shia Muslims, they believe more in what you call loyalty to the family of the Prophet Muhammad, and that began with Prophet or with Imam Ali. So Shia Islam is more adherent to Muhammad and his word, whereas Sunni Islam is a more community consensus in relation to Islam. Sunni Islam also has four major sources of legislation. The first one is the Quran, the second one is the Hadith, the third one is the Ijma, which is tribalism, and high Arab tribalism was incorporated into Islam. And the fourth one is Qiyas, which I believe is related to analogies and application. So now when we understand the main differences between Sunni and Shia Islam, it's important to understand that these two denominations have two different manifestations of deception. What I mean by that essentially is that the reason why a Shia Muslim would deceive or would be allowed to deceive in Islam is different from the reasons which would allow a Sunni Muslim to deceive others. Taqiyya, what most Westerners use as an example of why Muslims lie, is a doctrine that belongs only to Shia Muslims. And Shia Muslims are 10 to 15% of the worldwide Muslim population. That means that the Shia Muslims are respectively 10 to 15% of the migrants who come from the Middle East to Europe. That leaves us with the Sunni Muslims. The Sunni Muslims are probably the vast majority of the Muslims you have encountered. And when you talk to them about Islam, you told them, yeah, what about Taqiyya? And they would tell you, I don't even know what's Taqiyya. And you would assume, all right, they're not doing Taqiyya, that's why they don't know what's Taqiyya. And this what I call circular reasoning. So essentially, while you think that you're smarter than them and that they deceive you, they actually are not deceiving you at all. They actually do not know what is Taqiyya. However, in Sunni Islam, there are a couple of doctrines which allow, in accordance with tribal rules, to deceive. So Sunni Muslims, they follow the Quran, the Hadith, the Qiyas, and the Ijma. However, when they read the Quran, they would follow Muhammad's behavior and actions over the preachings of the Quran. For example, If I would compare that to Judaism, it would be as if Jews would follow Moses and break the Ten Commandments. The fact that our prophets and significant characters from our theology have committed sins doesn't mean that we as well should commit those sins. However, in Sunni Islam, the story is different, and the main reason why is because they follow the actions of Muhammad, and because they have the concept of asabiya, of tribal consensus. That means that they're allowed to lie to you in order to maintain the honor of the tribe. When a Sunni Muslim, when they would lie to you, what you would consider to be taqiyya, what they're doing is they implement ijma, and by that they sort of prevent you from dishonoring their tribe, which is today their religion. The second very, very important doctrine in Sunni Islam, which allows deception, is Hudaybiyah agreements or Hudaybiyah treaties. What this is, and again, because Sunni Muslims follow the actions of Muhammad, what they do is that they use the concept of Hudaybiyah in order to deceive. Okay, so the story is essentially that Muhammad made a treaty with the Quraysh tribe in Mecca, and this treaty was, in my opinion, a 5 years treaty or a 10 years treaty. And during the first 2 years of the treaty, Muhammad became very, very strong. So what he did was he breached the treaty and essentially eradicated that tribe. So if you go and you read Arab media in Arabic, or at least go and translate, you will see that many Arab leaders would consider treaties with the West as Hudaybiyah treaties. So these treaties essentially are for the time when we are weaker than you, but the moment we can breach this treaty, and that means the moment we are strong enough, we are definitely going to breach this treaty. This is why you'll have situations where in Islam they would have a lot of terror attacks in a period of time, and then things calm down. And the reason is because the moment they can attack you and breach the treaty, they definitely will. So in Shia Islam, on the other hand, you have Taqiyya. And the only reason of Taqiyya was to allow Shia Muslims to practice their denomination of Islam under a Sunni majority. The concept of Taqiyya doesn't mean that they're allowed to lie to you in order to invade your country. However, As-Sabiyya, which is a doctrine of Arab tribalism, is by nature designed for invasion and control of other people's land for resources. And Hudaybiyah essentially allows you to make an agreement with someone whilst you're weak, but once you're strong enough, you have to declare jihad. So you have to do what Muhammad has done, which is to concentrate all your effort and eradicate that tribe, that rival tribe. So we have two denominations of Islam. We have the Shia, who has Taqiyya, and we have Sunni Islam that has Asabiya and Hudaybiyah agreements. Next time you speak to a Muslim, ask them about Ijma, about Asabiya, and about Hudaybiyah agreements. When you tell a Sunni Muslim about Taqiyya, it doesn't really mean anything to them. So when they tell you, I don't know what you're talking about, they're actually not deceiving you. They're telling you genuinely that they have no idea what you're talking about. If you wonder why in the Arab world ceasefires always break, is because each ceasefire agreement is a Hudaybiyah agreement. The concept of jihad is long and complicated, and I'll discuss that in a different video. Because in a very brief summary of this video, always focus on Asabiya, Arab tribalism, and Hudaybiyah agreements. Do not use Taqiyya, only if you speak to a Shia Muslim, which you would rarely do. In Shia Islam, as far as I am concerned, there is no fundamental doctrine of invasion. You would have Hezbollah in South Lebanon, obviously invaded the land of the Christian Phoenicians in the 70s and 80s. And you have obviously the IRGC in Iran. But if you talk to a common Iranian Shia, they are really not fundamentalist people. If you speak, for example, with Kurdish Shia people or Azerbaijani Shia people, they're not radical people. Sometimes you have jihadi Shia fighting normative Shia, what you can see happening in Iran today. And the main reason why is because there is no element of tribal loyalty. So you can't as an individual criticize and be critical about what's happening around you. In conclusion, and I'll conclude this video because it's really important to have these conversations with people and Muslims, especially Sunni Muslims. I'm not in favor of debates. I personally do not debate. I have a very good friend who is a Pakistani Sunni. His father is an imam. And what I realized is when you have a genuine conversation, it is actually a conversation and not a propaganda war. And that's why I think sometimes having that sort of genuine interaction with someone like, okay, I know your number, I know the game. So can we have that conversation frankly? Like, can we have a frank conversation? And it does work. They will have a very genuine conversation with you. You might not like what you hear, but at least it will be the truth, or at least their actual intentions. And my last advice, and that's something that I've heard a lot from Western people, and that's the assumption that your culture is superior and their culture is inferior. So, no, I don't quite agree with that. The main reason why I cannot agree with that is just the way these two cultures evolved, the realities in which they evolved, the climate, um, population, and everything else. It's just not really comparable in that regard. Okay, there are a lot of, and there are many things actually in Arab tribalism that are amazing that I personally, I don't say I follow that because it's in Arab tribalism. I think it's also part of other Middle Eastern cultures. But yeah, I definitely do not object them. So there are a couple of very important things. It's the implementation, the interpretation, and then the application. So interpretation and application can be example between Catholics and Protestants. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it will be beneficial to your future conversations and have a good day.